Okay. We're going to close out this area as far as corruption and move on, but there's one other question in the area of corruption, and that is there's been some news reports that indictments are forthcoming later this summer.
Can't comment on that.
Can't comment? Okay, very good. Well, let me ask you, let's move on to terrorism, which obviously is a great concern to this country, to you, to law enforcement. The day of the Christmas Day bomber, that was the day that you were confirmed as the U.S. Attorney here in the Eastern District. And all of a sudden you were just thrown right out there. Any thoughts, any comments?
Yeah, well, you know, I actually think that I felt like I was in the right place at the right time. My background had been in counterterrorism. I had been the deputy chief of the counterterrorism unit within the U.S. Attorney's Office. And so because of that, I felt very well equipped to know how to deal with a case like that. And, you know, I certainly wasn't in it alone. We had some excellent prosecutors in our office who jumped and were on the scene immediately. People would be so impressed with the response by local law enforcement that day. It's Christmas Day, and FBI, Customs and Border Protection, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, you know, locals immediately were at the airport and interviewing the 200-some people who were on that plane, who needed to be interviewed before they went on to their next stop. They completely, you know, covered that situation and did a wonderful job. They were at the hospital dealing with the situation. So we also had great help from Washington. But I felt like I was in the right place at the right time because having had the prior experience in counterterrorism, I knew who to talk to. I knew who we needed to talk to on the investigative side. I knew who we had to talk to in Washington to make sure we were getting all the right resources we needed right here to address the situation. And I think it was handled beautifully.
So that day, Christmas Day, you were notified almost immediately? I mean, how'd that go down?
Yeah, received an email on my BlackBerry that we had a situation at Detroit Metro Airport as soon as it happened. And so we immediately found out a little more about it. And we saw that the FBI was asking for all hands, and we sent two of our prosecutors down to the scene immediately as well. And so as the day developed, we were in touch with you know, people in Washington, people within our office, and made sure that things were being handled smoothly. Interestingly enough, although I had been confirmed, I had not yet been sworn in. So we had an acting U.S. attorney who did a beautiful job as well of, and he and I spoke, but he certainly was very much on top of the situation and handled it very well as well.
Great. Where do we stand in the area of terrorism? I mean, it is a number one, I would assume, number one top priority with you in your office?
It absolutely is, and I think that when there's not a successful attack, people tend to forget about terrorism. You know, we kind of move on with our lives, which is a good thing because the point of terrorism is to terrorize and to make people change the way they go about their business. So I think that's a good thing that the public is living their lives. But we in the U.S. Attorney's Office, folks at the FBI, people in Washington at the Department of Justice are vigilantly protecting people's safety every day. There have been a number of failed plots that I think sometimes fall under the radar, but what happened in Times Square, you know, could have been a devastating attack. What happened in Detroit could have been a devastating attack. You know, as alleged in the indictment, the plan was to blow up this plane right over Detroit. It would have killed everyone on that plane and everyone below it. And so Al-Qaeda and other terrorist groups continue to want to kill us, and so we are very vigilant to make sure that we are working very hard to prevent that. And a lot of the work we do is also preventing the flow of money to overseas to make sure that we're not enabling terrorists to attack us. But some of the concerns today are some kind of lone wolf people, individuals who may go overseas for training, and U.S. citizens who are able to come back and commit attacks. The internet, which is now a great source of recruiting. And so we are monitoring all of those things, financial flow, as well as what's going on in the cyber world to try to keep our people safe.
Very good. You know, when 9/11 went down, I was the president of the Michigan Chiefs Association, and there was a lot of criticism towards the FBI that the FBI wasn't sharing information, and the CIA wasn't sharing information with the FBI, and that, you know, the federal people didn't have it together. And in fact, I went to Washington to just say the opposite, that, you know, the FBI, in my opinion, has worked excellent and shouldn't be criticized. If somebody's going to be criticized for what happened for 9/11, I mean, there's a lot of blame to be shared. I mean, I don't know if you want to comment on it or not, but we do know today that the FBI has shared and will share with the CIA, and the CIA shares with the FBI, and the federal government is working as a cohesive government units to make sure that all of this information is out there as far as intelligence information.
Well, I think it's gotten a lot better over the years, and I think in part of it, is a response to 9/11. But I think that some laws have been changed to permit a better sharing of information. There was a time when the law precluded the intelligence community to talk to the law enforcement community, and that was a big complaint in the 9/11 Commission report. But that law has been changed now so that that the intelligence community can talk to the law enforcement community, and vice versa. We occasionally get information on the law enforcement side that we share up with the intelligence community. So I think that's helped a lot. But
so you would agree that there was a problem with
I
the
think
sharing of information back at 9/11 days?
Yes, and I think there was there was a legal problem between intelligence and criminal. But I think there are also some institutional problems about different law enforcement agencies kind of held their information close. But I think the culture has very much changed. There are fusion centers now where people sit together and share information because I think that the people very much want to share information, because if you've got one piece of the puzzle and someone else has another piece of the puzzle, only by getting together and sharing it can you see what that puzzle looks like. So I think it's much better than it was. And I think that people like Andy Arena, who runs the FBI, does a wonderful job of bringing his Joint Terrorism Task Force together frequently to give briefings and let everybody know what's going on. There probably will always be some human failure of this list didn't get updated as quickly as it should have, but I think institutionally people are working very hard to prevent those kinds of gaps in information sharing.
Okay, great. We don't have too much time left, but let's talk a little bit about mortgage frauds and foreclosures and what the U.S. Attorney's Office is doing.
Yeah, our community certainly has been hit hard financially in a lot of ways, but one of them is what's going on with mortgage fraud and foreclosures. There was a time in the recent past when everybody was in the bubble and people were very aggressively getting people to buy into mortgages that were really way beyond their capacity, and so as a result we have a lot of foreclosures. And now what we're seeing are some bailout schemes where people are underwater, they're desperate to improve their situation, and people are coming along with schemes that are too good to be true. And if it's too good to be true, it probably is too good to be true. But the reason it matters, I think, is that I have heard a statistic that for every foreclosure in your neighborhood, your property value goes down by 1%. And so even if your home is not affected, if there's one on your block, it does affect your home. The other reason I think it matters is that when you've got foreclosures in a community and you end up with vacant homes, those can become a haven for criminal activity, drug houses or what have you. And so for that reason, we really want to combat this. We've got a white-collar crime unit whose priority is mortgage fraud. The FBI, Secret Service, HUD are focusing a lot of efforts on mortgage fraud in an effort to prevent these kinds of schemes from happening in the future. We've always kind of been one step behind the fraudsters, but we're trying to work together to share information so we can stay one step ahead of them. Okay.
Well, Barbara, unfortunately, we're out of time already. I mean, I appreciate you being a guest on Police Journal, and I think that the public knows more now today about the U.S. Attorney's Office and yourself, and we appreciate you being on. So thank you for viewing Police Journal, and until next time.